Hi, good afternoon and welcome to Theatrical Publishers webinar presented by American Association of Community Theater. I'm Ron Ziegler. I am the Festivals and Education Coordinator for AACT, and I'll be your moderator for this discussion. Let's kick off with quick introductions of our panelists, and John Pergnano, will start with you.
Good afternoon. John Pergnano from Music Theater International. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for being a part of this. I know there's a lot of questions that we need to get to, and hopefully we will get to all of them.
Okay, Billy?
Sure. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm on mute because my kids, you will hear them, so I might be on mute, but I'll jump in. I'm Billy Davis. I'm with Concord Theatricals. I'm the new Vice President of Amateur Licensing, having come on board less than 2 months ago. So it's been an interesting time to come in, but we're here to help all of you guys, and I hope we can answer some of your questions and we can be of help.
Okay, thanks, Billy. Jim, your turn.
Hi, I'm Jim Hoare from Theatrical Rights Worldwide. Happy to be here today. You probably received an email from us this week. We're giving away all of our perusals for downloads, so if you didn't receive that, let me know and I'll send you the link.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. And finally, Craig, last but not least.
I'm Craig Pospisil. I'm the Director of Non-Professional Rights for Dramatists Play Service in New York, or rather here at the Brooklyn office in Park Slope. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll hope to answer all your questions.
Okay, thank you, Craig. The format we'll take here is a question and answer format. We solicited questions in advance via ACT's website, and we have really quite a few of those, which we'll pose first. And if there's time toward the end of this webinar, we will open up live questions via the Q&A section of Zoom. And you can probably see that in your Zoom setup. You're certainly welcome to lay in questions anytime you like, and we'll get to them if we can by the end of things. So let's hopefully get all your questions answered. I mentioned earlier that much of what you're asking right now in the question and answer, similar things have been asked, but we'll see if we can get to some follow-up as well. Now, to begin, first of all, many of the questions dealt with the possibility of streaming production. So let's get to that first. Here's the first question. Given that restrictions for large crowds of over 100 won't be fully lifted for a very long time, what, if any, opportunities are there for selling tickets to a streaming performance? Anyone want to dive into that one?
Well, I will. We've been getting that question a lot. It's the one thing that's taken probably the most of my time in the last month, other than the cancellations and date changes. But yeah, that's not a set of rights that we normally handle or deal with, but because of the situation with COVID-19, we are approaching our authors and agents, and for the most part, we're getting positive responses. They want to pitch in during this time as well. So we're doing everything we can. Every now and then there's a no, because a film company may have bought the rights and then they buy the entire spectrum of electronic rights, and so we're precluded from licensing a video stream of some kind. But wherever we can, we're going to the agents and the authors and getting those. And a lot of the agencies have worked out a set of conditions that they gave to us and that we've put together between the agencies to allow for this.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Anyone else want to dive into that?
I would just say the same thing. It has been the most common question that we've had in the past 3-4 weeks. And there is a difference between live streaming and broadcast. Ultimately, we're all going to become very aware of these definitions. But whether you're streaming live or pre-recorded content, it is going to be a show-by-show basis, the same as Craig said. We have talked to some of our agents and authors, and they're willing, but they discovered they don't even own the permission to say yes. And if you have to go up the ladder at film companies, there'll probably be a vaccine developed sooner. But we're willing to certainly investigate the possibility. So it really is a show-by-show basis, but it doesn't And some will say they absolutely may not broadcast. So you cannot broadcast a pre-recorded show, but they're open to the concept of live streaming. And a community theater director actually said to me, could I sell half my house and keep social distancing and let the rest of the people buy downloadable tickets so I can watch the live stream? So there's a whole new world that's opening up here, and we have to ask, to get those answers.
Yeah, and I know that there have been some companies, groups of people that have been doing like closed group play readings, and that wouldn't, I don't think, would involve licensing, would it? If it's just a group of friends reading a play together? That is, I'm talking about it over Zoom.
Over Zoom, yeah. It would seem to me that, much like a book club gathering in somebody's living room and just reading the piece amongst yourselves, that seems, like it would fall under a fair use that way. But it would have to be a closed group and not
right
open to any other attendees or viewers.
Because once you open it up, then you're in a royalty situation. Yeah.
Right.
Billy, do you have anything to add to this conversation? What I imagine Concord's going through the same kind of questioning and chasing around, aren't you?
Very much so. And it's taken a lot of bandwidth on the team's part as well, just because we're figuring out, how to deal with it and how to get the answers. And it's, we're just saying, just please ask, just ask us, and then we will do our best to request that on your behalf. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, the control of it is out of our hands. We're a little bit fortunate in the sense that since one of our imprints is Rodgers and Hammerstein, we have a little bit more leeway with those titles because we sort of hold those rights, which is nice. But overall, it just takes it takes some time. It's a little bit of a long process because we're having to involve so many other people. So if you don't hear back from us right away, please be patient. Just know that we are reaching out to get the rights, to try and clear the rights for you.
Okay. We seem to have lost John Prignano, but I'm guessing he'll be rejoining us again very quickly. Let me move on with another streaming question that's slightly different. Going forward, little community theaters who are already struggling to pay rights to put on shows will find it tough to get people back at the Playhouse. Will rights, this is going forward, do you anticipate that rights for your productions include some kind of an option for online performances, or are we still in that big basket of not really knowing yet?
I'd say we're mostly in that basket. Most of the agencies that I've dealt with have given me permissions to be able to license something up through, say, mid or late June. They're not really committing to something for July or past that yet. So, I had an inquiry from somebody about doing a live stream in October, and it's like, they're not going to go for that. So we certainly aren't at the point where there's any idea of we could ever kind of acquire those rights. And they're rights we don't have currently. So to get them all would require like new contracts, new negotiations. And we've already said that in a lot of cases, a film studio may have already bought the rights. I've had some cases where, a film studio or production company bought the rights. Maybe a movie was never made, but they still have the rights. And so we're still unable to do anything with them, even though Play X never made it to the big screen.
Now, do any of you think that and this is actually sort of another question that I've gotten here. Do any of you think that perhaps in future models for licensing, spurred by the whole coronavirus debacle, that you'll be looking at ways to include in contracts streaming pay-per-view rights? I'm talking long term now. I'm not talking about within the next couple of weeks. Is that anything that anybody's discussed at your companies?
I would say we're talking a lot about it internally. It's a discussion we've had in several meetings. We've even had playwrights say, I want to write an adaptation for my play that is really only a virtual license that they can license, so that it would only be able to do over Zoom or one of these platforms. I guess we'll see, but we're definitely talking about it. It's definitely a conversation in several of the meetings about how we're moving forward with this stuff.
Thank you. John, welcome back. We've been talking about you the whole time. So now we've been talking about streaming and rights for streaming, and I know you've been getting the same kinds of questions for streaming rights or pay-per-view or whatever. I just want to know if you have any commentary about that from MTI's perspective.
Yeah, I'm sure pretty much similar to everyone else. You know, these are rights that normally aren't the bundle of rights that we acquire. So as people are asking, we're going back to authors and trying to get those rights. As you know, for a lot of our shows, right when it first happened, that first week in March, we were able to get most of our authors to agree to emergency streaming licenses for those productions that were happening between like March 15th and April 15th. Now that that's passed, we're actually going back and trying to get the rights for the ability to be able to stream or even, record and stream, stuff like that. Or even the Zoom stuff, we're trying to do it all, as I'm sure everyone has been saying the whole time I was trying to get back on. But so I don't think I'm saying anything new, but yeah, we're there. We're there with everyone. We're working really hard to try and make that happen.
Yeah, I think you're all, what I'm hearing is you're all in pretty much the same boat in terms of trying to acquire those rights. I'm going to read, this is a rather long question. I'm going to read it to you because there's sort of a little question in there that I think is interesting. Many artists are coping and helping others cope with lack of live theater by sharing clips and videos of previous shows and performances. In other words, without asking. Is there a consent among the publishers in support of this, or at least an understanding that strict enforcement of copyright and licensing restrictions should be eased during this time? There's a slippery slope for you. You care to respond?
Well,
No.
I'm.
That's always your answer.
Well, again, it is a slippery slope in terms of copyright. There was a proposal that somebody had sent our way to get Congress to pass some kind of resolution saying during this time of emergency, copyright will be waived. I mean, and I've had questions on it just over the last couple of days, people who said, somebody from, I want to say Greece wanted some scripts but they couldn't, they felt they couldn't order them. Could we please just send them free PDFs? It's like, well, we're as everybody has said, we've had to cancel a lot of shows, and that's, money going out the door there. And we've got our own electric bills to pay and our salaries to pay and stuff. So we need to, keep in business and keep the money coming in. So
No matter of whose pocket do you want to take it out of?
Sort of, yeah.
Because the authors still deserve compensation for their
And them too, obviously, yes, of course.
So
Nobody ever goes to the electric company and says, will you not bill me this month?
But I do understand the question. You all know that, stuff shows up on YouTube all the time of some community theater, high school, or even a professional production of one of your properties, and you can't monitor all of that. But I don't think any of you really turns a blind eye either, do you?
I don't think we can. I mean, it's part of what we do as a licensing company. It's to, make sure that the copyright is being met. I mean, there's, one of the things that we have put up on our website are, a lot of people have been asking about fan videos. That's a very different, those are different. And I think, if you're doing a single song in your room, that is very different than asking us to waive the rights of you being able to post your full production on the web for people to see. I just don't know how we can allow that. I understand the question. I sympathize with it. I really, really do. I think it's just inherently that's what we do, and that's what has to be done, because once I think once that goes away, it's going to be hard to kind of reel that back in. And it's a very, as you said earlier on, it's a very slippery slope. it becomes a very slippery slope.
Are the rest of you in agreement with John's
Yeah,
viewpoint?
absolutely.
I think you would be, yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
Because then you're dealing with the copyright law. Well, like I said, and whose pocket do you take it out of so that somebody else can keep it in theirs? It's a toughie, and it is one that all of us, of course, sympathize with in the community theater world, because there's not a lot of money here anyway, generally.
Sure.
So, but it's a legal question, and you really can't answer it by saying, yeah, go ahead. Here's a question similar. How do I find shows that we can video, so we can provide our ticket holders with a recording of the show to stay in business? This person says. What I would interpret this to say is, are there shows in your catalogs that you automatically allow rights for streaming? Do you have any of those? Not really. Do you?
We don't.
No.
We
I
would
mean,
still ask.
we have video rights, which allows you to make an archival video, but that doesn't give you the right to then stream it or hand it off to your patrons or sell it to your patrons. But that's, I believe, what we were talking about earlier. That's part of what we're all trying to accomplish, is being able to gather those rights to give to you so that you can hopefully at some point stream your productions.
Right. And I suppose other than that, we're talking about having to be public domain.
Correct.
Exactly, there is that, yes.
So there's I think is O'Neill in public domain now? No.
Some of his early stuff. The
Shakespeare obviously is.
up to like 1924. So like all of his one acts
Yeah.
are Anna Christie, things like that.
Yeah. And then of course, anything pre-1900 would be obviously in public.
Chekhov in the original Russian.
Yeah. Moliere, as long as it's in French.
Yes, as long as it's in French.
So the answer there really is public domain is really the only way to go. There isn't really anything in the catalogs that's free, unless there's another company that's just offering free scripts to do, and I don't even know who that would be. Right off the top of my head. Most of these questions are similar to the ones we've already had. This person is asking about, they say most of their patrons are elderly, 70 plus, and they don't see them venturing out to the theater for a while, even after things are back in order. But they're asking again, what it would be possible to include a live password protected stream for those people that can't come in, but we're in the same basket there, aren't we?
It's the same answer. I mean, I think we're all trying to do that and acquire those rights, but they're not rights that are readily available with our standard bundle of rights.
And having spoken to some of the agents for the authors, because it's their work that's being put out there, one of the big concerns that I heard was, how is my client going to receive royalties on these virtual performances? And he said, if a password protected ticket sale obviously is, the more security you have, the better it is. And he said, do they all use online ticketing services that can send us box office reports, and then we can see how many online tickets were sold in order to assess the royalties due? So these are all these questions that are coming up right now that we never had to deal with before.
Well, interestingly enough, Zoom, in the Zoom webinar format, there is a way to charge per broadcast or per webinar. So there'd be a way to do a virtual performance. Like if we were reading a play right now, there would be a way to do that.
I'm getting a lot of questions about doing basically readings via Zoom. That's probably what I'm getting, the majority, or, at least the plurality of my questions are about doing it on a platform like Zoom.
Well, in fact, you got one from us. But just so everybody knows, that's who knows. I mean, you can ask about virtual performances, and if you're charging, though, just remember that everybody needs to get the cut that they're entitled to. It's
just so early. I mean, it feels like it's been forever, because every day is 2 months. But we're very early in this, and of course, we all hope it goes away sooner than later. But so some of these questions, the agents and the authors aren't going to have answers for until we have a clearer picture of what's going to happen, and that's a ways off, I think.
Okay. That,
That's a very good point, Craig. Yeah, I know it feels like
Feels like
it's
we've
been a
been-
year, but it really has been a short period of time in the reality. That's very smart to think about. Yeah.
Well, that's me.
it is, but I also sympathize with theaters that all of a sudden have no income stream.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
And people are trying to reschedule their seasons and, hoping that they're opening again in September, and that could be pushed off too.
that's a maybe. It's a maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'll ask people if they have other questions about streaming to please ask them, and we can get to them if we have time at the end. But that pretty well covers streaming questions we had. I have a couple more, but they're the repeats of the ones we had earlier. So Ed, do you have any other commentary about the streaming issue, any of you?
Well, the only thing that I'll say is that we're actually have been soliciting from some of our playwrights because there have been a number of small festivals that theaters have put on of entire new works just written for Zoom or streaming as a medium. And so we've actually put out the call to a lot of our playwrights to submit some works to make available at this time and maybe into the future specifically for Zoom for people to do. So it's opening up a new avenue potentially, and we hope to have something to offer in the next few weeks, I hope.
Good news. Thank you. Let's go on into, I've got several questions regarding cancellations, deposits, royalties, and so on. And let's just dive into those. First question on cancellations. What happens if our show, this is pretty general, what happens if our show is canceled due to COVID-19? What in terms of the, I'm assuming they're saying what's the process of cancellation, and is there, from the agency's perspective, what do you do with a cancellation request? Specifically in terms of COVID-19.
Well, we're, basically handling it much the same as we always have. There's, a process. Somebody lets us know that we have an online application form. Performances that don't take place, any royalty paid will be refunded. We're, working hard to help people try and reschedule things if they can. So we're developing ways of putting a license on a temporary, at least, hold, so you don't have to give up the rights altogether. We can all kind of maybe pause and wait and see what the summer may bring, in terms of being able to reschedule. Obviously, if something was opening tomorrow, that might be tougher than something that was going to open in June. But we're working with the theaters very closely to reschedule, or if they need to cancel, we'll cancel it and refund anything that's been paid. Please be patient. We've been getting a few cancellations, and so they're taking a while to get processed.
We're pretty much in the same boat. It's a normal process. I have to say that I've been excited to see that most people are trying to postpone. I mean, it's been very encouraging to see that people are expecting to be able to do these shows, and we're postponing indefinitely so you are able to do that, so that you don't have to go through the whole process all over again. But if you do, we've also got a lot of cancellations, and they're the same process. You have to inform us, and then things get reversed out. And refunds will be paid. Unfortunately, right now we're not in the office. We're trying to work through how to do that, because everything we do is a physical check. And we're trying to work through that process right now of figuring out how we can get those processed and them not being a check. It's not the easiest thing, unfortunately. I thought it was going to be easy. I don't know what I was thinking.
I agree. We have the same process. We've been processing a lot of postponements as well as some of those overly optimistic postponements from March to April are now becoming further postponements or cancellations. But the same thing, we're in New York City, we're not allowed to open, and it's hard to process checks when we're not there. But we will process the cancellations like we would with any other show. Don't make a mistake, however, always let us know early. You don't want to have the mistake of telling us after your show would have opened that you're canceling, because if we've paid out the royalties, cancellation fees are going to probably have to apply. So let us know early.
Billy, you had something else to say?
Very much the same as everybody else. I mean, we're getting through the list, really encouraging postponement over cancellation when possible, and keeping those rights held for whoever needs them, and doing refunds as quickly as we can.
The next question says, what's the best way to get refund on a canceled production? Now, and I mean, I think that you've sort of covered that, but do you all have a application procedure through your website and that sort of thing?
Yes.
And then you're just asking people to be patient with the refund.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I'll go out on a limb. I think we're having an easier time crediting back to a credit card on a payment like that, rather than the check thing, like John was saying. You know, that is taking a little longer to figure out. But I mean, normally if somebody pays by a credit card and then cancels, we would refund to that card, you know, give them a credit there. So those are a little easier to take care of.
Yeah. I have a person asking also, they're actually specifically talking about Samuel French show, but I think the same thing applies to everyone. So it says they've canceled because of COVID-19. They're wondering how soon the checks will be mailed, and they said they can't wait for a credit for the future show because they're short on cash and they need the money. But I would guess, if I'm answering incorrectly, I'm guessing that the answer is because of your situation, the company situation, and being displaced as well, that patience is the key. You can't really guarantee when it's going to go out.
Yeah.
Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
So please, folks, be patient. We're all in the same boat. The agencies are too. So as soon as we can, just hold on tight. And somebody's asking if they're committed to produce a show or if cancellation is allowed and refund, but you've already answered that. Refunds allowable. You prefer them to postpone, but refunds allowable, correct?
Yes.
I have a question specific for Concord. Moving on to deposits now. It says, for Concord, can you discuss your deposit policy?
We no longer have deposits for musicals. When the merger happened at the beginning of the year with the imprints merging together, I wasn't there when that merger happened, but I know as of January 1st, the deposit requirement for a musical was lifted, so we no longer require the deposit for musicals. So right now, there's no deposit required. I will go ahead and say, because I'm sure the question has been, probably has been asked, but we are also very aggressively looking at our payment policy at the moment. So part of the lifting of the deposit was asking for the rental for payment up front at an earlier time. So we are currently at the moment reassessing all of that. And working with theaters with payment plans and things like that, because we know that several people have addressed concerns about not being able to pay their fees at the moment, considering the uncertain future that's going on. So we've been encouraging everyone to contact your rep at Concord and let us know, and we will certainly come up with a payment plan that will work for you. So,
Anybody else have a different deposit policy? Are you similar?
We don't have one.
You know, that's right. Well, I guess I knew that.
mm-hmm.
Don, do you?
Ours is the same. I don't know what it's going to be when the world comes back to whatever it's going to be, what the new world is going to be. But our usual, our standard practice is in place, whereas there is, to secure a contract, there is the $400 security deposit that is required. That's still part of our standard practice. But we do accept, what that does is it guarantees your license. We do accept licenses without a deposit, but it doesn't guarantee a license. The $400 does guarantee that license. And it is refundable if you cancel or if you move it to another show.
Okay. Would it be possible for all publishing houses to allow just paying a small deposit up front, then full payment 8 to 12 weeks from the first performance going forward, not just during the pandemic?
Well, that's kind of, well, that's where we are right now. We require the $400 deposit, and then before materials are released, we require the rest of the payment.
Mhm.
So that could be 8 weeks prior to your performance, just depending on when you want to get your materials in order to rehearse. So I think that answers the question, yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Same here.
Here's a random question just thrown in here that I think I just got out of order, but I like the question, so I must ask it. During this COVID isolation, would this be a good time for playwrights to submit new scripts to your companies? Or are they closed for the duration? I know the person that submitted this, and he's very serious. I understand why he's asking. But are you close to getting new submissions at this point? That's what he really wants to know.
I don't know if we're close to it. It's just not something we're focusing on at the moment.
Yeah.
And I would hate for stuff to get lost in the craziness of everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
That would be that's my thoughts on that. Is, you know, we're not close to it, but at the same time, there's so many other things going on. I would hate for that to get lost in the shuffle of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really not looking at making too many new acquisitions at this time either.
Are all of you? I'm sorry, Craig. Go ahead.
No, that was about it. I've been approached with that question by a couple of other enterprising authors and such, and it's just like there's so many balls up in the air right now that we have to focus on all of that right now.
Yeah. Now, are all of you involved, at least to some degree, in acquisitions, or is that other people in your company? To some degree?
Yeah.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, generally, yeah, I figured that was probably the case. Okay, going on to a couple questions about royalties. Considering unemployment and possible recession, ticket prices may need to fall to attract cash-strapped audiences. How will royalties reflect the new paradigm?
I would say contact your licensing rep. We can modify royalties based on the change of circumstances. Someone already called us and said we need to lessen the size of our house when we open. So we'll reconfigure everything if we have to.
Yeah, I mean, royalties are based on, at least for MTI, royalties are based on your potential gross sales. So if that number is changing, then obviously your royalty number would change with it. Absolutely.
And Craig, are you flat feed, or are you based on?
Well, the non-professional side is a flat fee. Again, I kind of think, you know, it may be early days yet, you know, if we go into a deep recession or something, you know, obviously we'll have to see about that. We always try to be flexible. If somebody approaches us with a problem and says, I'm having trouble doing this payment at this time, you know, we can be flexible about splitting that up or sometimes reducing it, you know, if you're getting reductions from other businesses that you're dealing with and putting that production together. So, you know, as Jim said, yes, contact us, always contact us and ask, and, you know, we'll do what we can. You know, if you can't do the show because it's too expensive, we're not going to make any money for ourselves or our writers. So we're going to try and want to work with you as best we can. And especially at a time like this, you know, we're cognizant of that, and we'll make the adjustments that we can to make it happen.
And I would guess that at Concord, it's sort of a mixed bag, isn't it, across the board of the different entities?
I mean, no, it's pretty much the same across the board. I mean, if your audience size changes, of course, contact us and we'll recalculate your fees based on your new audience size. I mean, and that's pretty standard with plays and musicals. So, yeah.
When I was running theaters back in the day, if ever I thought that I could probably get a better deal, I'd usually write an appeal letter. But sometimes that fell on deaf ears too, because sometimes my argument was ridiculous. But logical arguments, I can just say this from experience, that logical arguments are always well received by the licensing entities. So, and that's always been, that's appreciated. Since we have to anticipate, I think this is sort of the same question, but let me read it anyway. Since we have to anticipate potentially changing our seating capacity to deal with social distancing, how do we fill out the expected audience capacity questions on a royalty form? We put in a range. There'd just be an appeal process if it did change.
So you're saying on an initial license, how do you fill that in? I mean, again, talking from our perspective, we need some number. Like we can't use a range because we have to put a number in there. But you know, at the end of their performances, and I say this to everyone, is, you know, if you're licensed and you're paying royalties on 700 seats and you've only sold 250 seats, send us your box office and we will requote those royalties based on your actual seats that you sold. There's no reason for you to take a bath on that. And that's just how we have always worked, is if for some reason you're not selling the way you thought you would, and it has to be significant. I'm not talking, you know, 15, 20 tickets. I'm talking a significant number. We will absolutely do that. But as Jim pointed out earlier, it has to be done within a certain time frame, because once those royalties are paid out to authors, it's hard to get them back. It's hard to get the check back. So do it soon as possible. That would be my suggestion from our perspective.
Yeah, I think this question really has to do more with like more with social distancing. So if they're wondering if they are anticipating having to seat people 6 feet apart, say, in their theater, and lose 2/3 of their audience, should they just put it in a range, or they should put it what they expect and then follow
Exactly. There's still, you know, if it's 6 feet apart, you know approximately how many tickets you could still sell.
Right.
And I think that's what you base it on. And then again, if that changes drastically, or we could do a square up at the end of it, but it has to be within those 7 days of your last performance. Otherwise things start to get shifted around money wise. That's for MTI. I don't know how anyone else feels.
I would do the same, as well as our licensing reps. If they suddenly saw that your 1,000-seat house from last year is now 300 seats, they'll call you and ask.
Well,
and if
yeah.
you tell us you're only selling 300 seats, or you're only printing 300 tickets because of social distancing, then we will adjust.
Yeah.
How will, now we're getting in kind of miscellaneous questions. They're different topics, although this one is similar to the one we just had. How will potential gathering and distancing guidelines affect productions under contract, and those planned for the future? In other words, ones that are already contracted. Same thing, right? They just, if they distanced after the fact, they'd contact you and say, well, we only printed 300 tickets instead of the normal 9.
Correct.
Exactly what we were just talking about.
You work. Yeah, that's what I thought. What I think this one's impossible to answer, but maybe you've had this discussion within in-house. I don't know. What is your best conservative guess of when our 2021 season could open to a full house? Would it be wise to start in January rather than October? I'm not sure if that's a question for licensing agents or if it's a question for
Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, exactly. Or for
He's
some
on this panel.
I don't know if anyone can answer that question at this point.
And it's going to vary from region to region.
Yeah.
You know, in some of the plain states, they may or may not be able to open sooner than, you know, we will here in New York, or somewhere where a population density makes it harder with the spikes.
Well, January will always be safer than October, I think, at any rate. Although October may be safe too. Or January may not be safe. Well, you know, at this point, yeah, I think the answer to that is nobody really knows.
Yeah.
And you can
ask the virus.
Yeah, exactly. Can you help us find a way to make income when no one can rehearse and audiences are barred from being in our venue? Well, but do you understand the question?
Yeah.
What they're saying is,
Yeah.
do you have have you been discussing in-house what ways that your agencies, that your entities can help them decide on ways to make revenue in the theater?
Well, I think some of that is the doing the shows as a streaming performance of some kind, and then charging a ticket fee or asking for donations, whatnot. I think that's, you know, one of the primary ways. I mean, that's kind of the primary thing that I've got going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking about it every day and trying to figure out options that would make sense within the rights that we have, and even then, possibly going out and trying to acquire different rights to be able to help people do something. What that something is, I'm not sure yet. I don't know how to be sure of that yet, but you know, we're working on it every day. Every day it's a conversation at the office, or I don't want to say the office, but you know what I mean.
The office, the general office. How do you anticipate the crisis will impact the number and titles of shows under restriction? Will shows scheduled be released to community theater markets still be released on same previously planned schedule? Will shows that have been available to community theater markets become restricted due to the changing needs of Broadway theaters?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. All of it. Yeah.
That's a toughie because it depends on what the professional houses are doing kind of first, doesn't it?
Well, and the tours, if they go back out, what's reopening on Broadway, what's not reopening on Broadway. I mean, it's all up. It's hard to nail down right now.
Again, it's early days, and until we know how long it's going to last and how long Broadway is shut down, or how long regional theaters schedules are disrupted, it's really hard to say. Certainly, you know, something that was maybe waiting for a Broadway production that's now canceled might get released earlier because it's going to be hard for them to reassemble the team and get another Broadway house, or maybe they're all available now. Who knows? I've got a show.
Good.
So again, it's going to be something that I think we just have to wait and see what happens. It's going to disrupt
100%.
some in your favor. I'm not sure of many that will suddenly become re-restricted. But I think that things coming available sooner is maybe more likely than the reverse.
So something that's restricted now could actually come off restriction if that production closes or if it doesn't go on tour.
Well, for instance, like if a show was slated to come into Broadway and now, you know, with the cast can't hold together, you know, they may have to cancel it. And so something in a case like that, something might get released to us sooner.
If a national tour was canceled, it's possible that it could be available in certain territories sooner. But if that national tour is postponing, the restriction is going to go on longer.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah.
Well then, John, here's a question specifically for you related to that. When will the gender release happen for Kinky Boots?
Well, we were planning on that very soon. Actually, we were. I don't see why we would. That would not happen. It just, I honestly can't give an absolute answer, but we were planning on releasing it very soon, general release.
I only laugh because it's putting you on the spot and I really kind of enjoy that.
Well, no, it's a great question, and the answer is that was going to happen this quarter. And now everything's on hold, for multiple reasons. And I don't foresee that not getting into the release schedule once we go back to it. I just don't know when we're going to be going back to it. Yeah. I think there's too many unknowns in the greater world of what we're doing to be able to do that right now.
As a follow-up to that, this person says, what will MTI's policy be on extending dates into 2021 and beyond? So in other words, if they have to skip seasons or fiscal years, are you game to look at that too?
Absolutely. I mean, we allow 18 months in advance right now. I think for a period of time, we'll probably look at that, and I don't want to say it'll be on a case-by-case basis, but right now we're actually looking at that on a case-by-case basis. Someone wants to book something into late 21 or early 22, we're actually looking at it depending on the show. But I foresee that being fairly not much of a problem.
Okay. I do have one question for Concord, and this is a simple one. This person says, do we have different agents for Samuel, French, Rogers, Hammerstein, and so on? Different agents or same agent?
For licensing reps, it's the same.
Same
They all represent the same. Yeah.
Okay. Let's, Winston, I'm going to say let's go ahead and open up the chat questions. I've got a couple other ones here that are really sort of follow-ups and stuff we've already talked about. So let me take a look at the Q&As and see if we can, we'll go right from the top of it. I think the first couple have already been answered.
Yeah, if you want to just stick with the very top of the list, anything that has already been answered is in a different column. However, if it's underneath the open, then those have not been answered just yet.
Okay. For Craig, my company was planning on performing When We Were Young and Afraid and Unafraid in August. If we can't do it live by then, does the licensing allow for online live streaming? That really sort of has.
Yeah, it doesn't automatically allow it, but as I've said, we're going to our authors and the agents, and most of them are giving us approval for that, under the circumstances. So in August, they probably wouldn't be ready to commit to that yet. We'll have to see what happens in the next weeks or a couple months, how that plays out. But if the COVID situation is still in effect and disrupting theater performances, then I think, as I say, most of our authors and agents are being quite generous in allowing us to license these things. So good chance if it's still in effect.
The next question this person is asking, they said, I'd like to ask Dramatists Play Service if we can change the show to next year, but change the show to a happier one. Because the one they're scheduled was a serious drama. And they
Do you want a new play, or or do you just want to make the current show, jokes to death of a stage?
I think they want to change plays.
And a joke writer.
Right. Well, I'll answer both questions. One, if you want to move the show to a different spot in your season, we'll be happy to work with you on that. And if you want to switch out one show for a different one, we'll obviously be happy to work with you on that too. We're gonna do everything we can to get you what you want, and work with you as closely as possible to make that happen.
If they ask if they can write in jokes, the answer is no.
It depends on how good the jokes are, I suppose.
Well, I think this has been answered, but let me. In the present atmosphere, has anyone seen any examples of submissions of new scripts for performances designed to take advantage of streaming formats, multiple cameras, and so on? You said yes, you've been getting those kind of requests.
Well, as I said, we'd seen that some of these festivals were taking place where theaters, were putting on like new works specifically for the streaming medium, and so a couple of people in our office had the idea that we should actively solicit from some of our writers, and so we're putting together submissions that we're getting, mostly one acts, or short plays or one acts. And so we're trying to build a small, batch of those that we can then license out. People can either, mix and match from what they like in those. And we're just got the first couple in so far, and we're hoping to get some more soon and have something available through the website, hopefully in a few weeks.
Okay. Here is a question for Billy. Is Disney and MTI working on streaming the junior and kids versions? Is there any talk about that?
I mean, there's talk about it. We are, working on getting any streaming rights that we can get. I mean, nothing's been granted at this point, but we are in discussions.
Okay. Okay, I'm not gonna ask.
Well, now you have to.
Well, at least email it.
If a company live streams a show, should their cast members be masked and 6 feet apart?
As well as the orchestra.
Possibly.
Thomas, I love that question. If you really want to do that, I think
Maybe it may be happening. Who knows?
it could be. Can each company give an overview on their current policies on refunds for paid contracts, rights, royalties, and also regarding postponement of show dates? I believe we've covered that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a twist on the streaming thing, one that we didn't quite ask before. May we share our production videos on YouTube with a private setting so only people who have the link can view? In other words, for a closed group. John says no.
Not until we can get streaming rights available.
But that would still be streaming rights even if it's shared private YouTube.
Because it's still streaming.
It's still streaming. Those are very different rights. Yeah, you're still electronically presenting a performance, which is different than the rights that we have, which is to present a performance live on a stage.
Yeah.
We'd have to get the permission for that cleared,
Yes.
and the agents are very concerned that all of these streaming things should be on a secure platform, password protected, so that it's not just open to anyone around the globe to watch, but to kind of basically that theater's audience that they might normally reach. I mean, maybe a little wider, but still that it should be, to a select group of some kind, however you want to arrange whether the tickets, whether they're a donation, whether it's an actual fee, whether you're just making it available to your subscribers, on your own behalf or something, it still has to be a secure site.
Yeah. In reference to the video question, what happens when a person no longer involved with the theater company posts portions of shows from decades ago? With the theater company, I understand the question. Be held liable for those posts. What can the theater do to protect themselves since they're not the ones posting the production videos?
It's a hard question.
It is.
Because ultimately the theater is responsible, and you will probably get a call or a cease and desist or something. I mean, in this situation, what I would suggest if someone were to come to me with this is I would probably have them or the licensing company call YouTube or whatever streaming platform it's on, and let them know that it should be taken down because it's not falling within copyright. And in usually those cases, the streaming platform will take them down.
Because essentially they shouldn't have been videotaped to begin with.
Right.
Well, they may have been able to videotape, but they shouldn't be posted on a streaming platform to be seen.
Because you wouldn't have that. Yeah.
Yeah, like YouTube is really good about that. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but we've had situations where authors call up and say, please have them take it down, and we contact YouTube as the official licensing company representing the copyright, and they will take it down, no questions asked in most cases.
Often within the hour. I mean, they're very good at
Yeah,
taking
exactly. It's usually very quick.
Do you all have agreements in place for the new Broadway On Demand streaming network?
That was just announced, that.
I believe so.
Well, no, not at the moment. I think it's my understanding that the new Broadway on-demand streaming that is happening, they're going to require that you prove to them that you have the streaming rights before they will stream it for you. So you'll still have to come to us to acquire those rights before they would stream it on there.
But you're at least aware of what's going on there and have some buy-in at any rate.
It's not a buy-in, no, but
Not buy-in, but awareness.
I think
awareness, yes.
We're aware. I just don't think we have a good understanding of what it is or what is even being asked of us or customers. It's so new. I mean, it's just literally we just heard about it, or at least I did. We've been knee deep in so many other things that we're just catching up on some of the stuff that's happening around the world, but it is way too new for us to actually even know what we're doing with it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it sounds exciting.
It does. To see what happens, huh?
Yeah.
How far into the future are each of your companies allowing contracts to be pushed to? 12 months or more? You said 18, John?
Our standard rule right now is 18 months, but we are looking at other ones on a case-by-case basis if it has to go out further than that right now.
Ours is standard is 18 months, but we're letting people extend into 2022 with the exception of shows that may have been claimed for tours, because that opens up again a whole of possible restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've had any requests for postponements that have gone that far back. Maybe, I think the most I've gotten is a year.
Yeah, that's where we've been, about a year.
And so, as long as as there's no other restriction in place, it goes forward. And most of them, I don't think any of them have been turned down for any reason. We're definitely trying to work with everybody and make these things happen. So.
Question: currently, rights and royalties need to be paid in full in order to sell tickets. To help community theaters gain revenue once we are back, can we sell tickets with just a deposit?
Well, we don't have we don't require any royalties until 2 weeks before your opening. So once you have permission from us, you can go ahead and promote it and sell season tickets or whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Once you've signed your contract and gave us your deposit, or at the very least a signed contract, that you could go and sell tickets, and then royalties and the rest of your payment is not due until the materials are ready to ship, which is 8 weeks prior to your performance. Or if you want them sooner, you can get them sooner too, but payment has to be made before the materials go out.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah. If an author has granted us permission to stream her new play and we do so, could that hurt her potential future with publishers for the show? Asking for a friend.
Dear Abby.
I get the question. I could probably answer it, but I'm going to let you.
Yeah.
If an author granted us permission to stream her new play and we do so, could that hurt her potential future with publishers for the show? I'm assuming this person means an unpublished show. Normally they try to have published.
No, I don't. No.
It might help. Who knows? I mean, depending on what the world is going to be. Yeah.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt any more than actually having your play produced. So
exactly.
Okay, if we're getting close to the end here, but I can give you a couple more. If a former cast wants to get together and record their vocal parts from a previous production, does this fall under a copyright issue? Oh, and then could we post this vocal cast recording?
Yes and no.
Explain, please. Elaborate.
I mean, of course, it's a copyright issue. You're literally making a copy of the song, and so you'd need those rights. Those would be for a musical, though. Those would be the small rights, wouldn't they?
Well, it's a cast recording, right, and which we don't normally have, but yeah. it's what everyone has to understand is, when we get our bundle of rights, it literally is to perform the show on a stage live with an audience. There are so many other rights that are involved with so many different things that you want to do, whether it's a cast recording or streaming or videotaping, that aren't really part of our rights. And I think, you just have to understand that. And we're willing to go out and ask those questions. And, we've had people ask about doing cast recordings, and we've gotten licenses to do that. So it just depends on, again, the show, the authors, what rights they've already given away, what rights they haven't given away. Every show is unique.
Not beyond the realm of possibility, but yet you can't just do it for nothing. You can't
Correct.
just do it without asking.
You can't just do it. That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, we're about out of time, but I wanted to before we wind up, would each of you be willing to state your email address for people to give you follow-up questions?
Absolutely not.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Of course.
And your check account numbers.
I'll give you
John?
my cell phone number if you like. No. My email is very simple. It's John, JOHNP, @mtishows.com.
John P. at mtishows.com. Great.
Correct.
And you can write to us at nonpro, NONPRO, @dramatists.com.
And Billy?
It's Billy, BILLIE, and then .Davis @concord.com.
And Jim?
Jim H. at theatricalrights.com.
Okay, well, so there, if you have follow-up questions, I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody's question, but what a terrific discussion and conversation. I want to thank our panelists for agreeing to sit in with us for this hour of great information. And who knows, we may do this again before too terribly long. If so, you'll hear from us via the normal channels, and hopefully we can all get together again. So for now, I just want to thank you again. I'm Ron Ziegler, and on behalf of ACT, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a lovely weekend going nowhere.
Be safe and healthy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everybody.